In today's video, I want to share a perspective on depression that comes from Saint Ignatius and his spiritual exercises. What you're about to watch is an excerpt taken from a session from my Sanctus Healing Program, which looks at depression and low self-worth in much more depth. I'll let the video speak for itself, and then I'll come back at the end to let you know how you can learn more if it resonates with you. God bless. Hello and welcome to our final session in our second module on the Passions. And today we're going to be looking at some guidance from Saint Ignatius of Loyola, who, as you may or may not know, is quite famous for his spiritual exercises. As I've said, Saint Ignatius is famous for his spiritual exercises. And his exercises are used very often in the discernment of vocations, or just discernment per se, to discern a decision-making process. And we'll look at that in today's session. But he talked extensively in his spiritual exercises about a spirit of consolation and a spirit of desolation. A spirit of consolation and a spirit of desolation. So consolation is feeling consoled, feeling loved by God, feeling held in God's hand. So this related particularly to our experience in prayer. It didn't relate to mental health. He didn't intend his exercises to be used. Well, he didn't have it in mind. It's a spiritual direction tool. But the elements of his model map so well onto depression that I use it all the time. And the spiritual teachers teach this as well. How to relate to a period of desolation and how to relate to a period of consolation. And again, I'm using desolation almost as a metaphor for depression here. Okay? So, in the normal course of things, our mood goes up and down. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad, and it should be in direct response to something that's going on for us. But there are ways in which we can relate to feeling low or depressed or sad or sorrowful or empty or desolate, which don't help. And let's look at what it is that we can do when we're in those states that doesn't help. Well, the first thing that Saint Ignatius says is that when we're in a state of desolation, when we're feeling empty and lacking in heart or drive or desire or joy, he says there are three things that we're tempted to believe. And those three things are, one, this is who I am. We identify with it. This is who I am. Okay? Two, it has always been this way. It has always been this way. And that's a commonly observed symptom of depression is when we remember things, we filter out the positive. Okay? It has always been this way. And three, it will always be this way. It's never going to change. That's why we can feel hopeless. The first thing that Ignatius says is that these three things, this is who I am, and it has always been this way, and it's always going to be this way, is that they're all myths. They're all false. They're all untrue. In the spiritual life, they're suggestions of the devil. Okay? They're suggestions of the evil spirit. Okay? And we need to annihilate these three myths. We need to annihilate them. And the first piece of advice he gives is what we need to do is to recall, to use our memory to bring to mind when I didn't feel this way. When I didn't feel this way. And that might be last week, it might be 6 months ago, it might be 10 years ago. But in recalling when I didn't feel this way, it annihilates the first myth. It can't be who I am. In reality, we know it can't be who we are anyway, because our passions are transient. They come and go if we relate to them healthily. If we try not to feel them, they slip out from under us and they govern us. Okay? But if we relate to them healthily, they come and go, they pass. that passions pass, right? So we know in principle, but it's hard to recall sometimes. So when we're in a state of desolation, we need to recall when I didn't feel this way. It annihilates the myth that this is who I am. It also annihilates the myth that it has always been this way. If I can remember when it wasn't this way, then it simply cannot be true that it has always been this way. And it makes the "it will always be this way" myth extremely unlikely. Okay? And it helps us to see that things change. Right? Things always change if we allow them to. Again, trying not to feel is the means by which we get governed by our emotions. One of the means by which we get governed by our emotions. Okay? So if we remember, I didn't feel this way last month, then it annihilates all three of these myths. He says that the reason why we tend to think these three things when we're in a state of desolation is because we inhabit the point of desolation. We wallow in it, essentially. We sit there and identify with the thing. We let it overcome us. We allow our passionate life to dictate reality to us. It determines the truth for us. We wallow in it, to put it in common terms. Philosophically speaking, you say you enjoy it. You inhabit the position. You inhabit that depressed state. We inhabit it and we let it define us. The second strategy that he gives, so the first is reflect on when it wasn't this way. The second strategy is to step out of that position. So when I am feeling depressed or low or desolate, to step out of that position and reflect on myself. To reflect on myself in a period of desolation. To reflect on myself when I'm feeling depressed. And to look at it and explore it and say, oh, hang on a minute. I'm feeling that way again. I'm feeling sad. And to reflect on it, to think about it. Okay? Which is a power that we have in our intellect. I can reflect on the fact that I feel a certain way. I can reflect on the emotional state. And in reflecting on it, I create some distance from it. I don't inhabit it. I don't identify with it. I don't wallow in it. I need to step out of it and reflect on it in an inquisitive way. I wonder why that's there again. I wonder why that's there. I wonder why I'm feeling that way. I can notice the feeling now. So to reflect on ourselves in a period of desolation. And what that enables is for us to enjoy or wallow in consolation. To enjoy when we're feeling better. When we get this right, when we reflect on ourselves in periods of desolation and enjoy periods of consolation, that midline that you see there tends in an upward trajectory because we're anchoring ourselves to joy. We're anchoring ourselves to consolation. We're anchoring ourselves to God, actually. Okay? When we do it wrong and we identify, we wallow in a period of desolation and identify with it and say, this is who I am, it's always been this way, it's always going to be this way, this can't change. That midline tends in a downward trajectory over time, and we become more and more depressed as time passes by. So these two tools of reflecting on when this wasn't the case, I didn't feel this way 6 months ago, I didn't feel this way yesterday, and stepping outside of myself and reflecting on myself in a period of desolation enables me to enjoy consolation. If I get it wrong and I wallow in desolation, when I come to a point of consolation, when the depression's lifting a bit and I'm feeling happier, typically I won't trust it. I'll step outside of that position and reflect on the peace or contentment and say, this isn't me. I can't trust this. So we do exactly the wrong thing. We flip the system. If we wallow in misery, we won't trust joy. If we wallow in joy, we don't trust misery. It's like, well, that's not me. So we anchor ourselves to one or the other. Okay. And if we anchor ourselves to consolation, we'll be happy old people. If we anchor ourselves to desolation, we'll be miserable old people. Okay? So again, this is good advice of prayer too, right? If you're feeling like you're not consoled in prayer, just reflect on it and think, well, why is this here again? What is it that's brought this back again? Why is there consolation? Sometimes this is more spiritual direction. Sometimes God allows it for our good. Sometimes it's because we're being lazy and we're not persevering in prayer enough. But this is for spiritual direction actually. But it maps onto depression really well. So, what are the rules to follow? 1. Reflect on myself in times of desolation. Don't wallow in it. Don't just be in it. Reflect on yourself in times of desolation. Enjoy times of consolation. One final rule, when you're in a period of desolation, when you're feeling low, never go back on a decision which you made in a time of consolation. Never change your mind. Stay the course. Stay on the same track. If you made a decision to engage in a course of action when you were feeling peaceful and happy, and then you become depressed, don't change your course of action when you're depressed. This is very strong advice from St. Ignatius. Stay the course. Wait until you're out of the desolation and you're feeling better, and then you can think about it again because you'll think more clearly. Okay? So in times of desolation or depression, never go back on a decision which you made in a time of consolation. If this has resonated with you and you're looking to learn more about a deeper, more spiritual perspective on understanding depression and low self-worth, then you can find this in my Sanctus Healing Program, which is part of a wider journey that's rooted in the teachings of the Church and modern psychology, but also the teachings of St. Thomas Aquinas and his understandings of psychology. If you'd like to learn more, then there's a link in the description below, but also in the comments below this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. God bless. Bye-bye.